Hey everybody, it's Kate the West Coast Paper Crafter, and you are tuning in for Project 1 of my More Than Autumn card class at home. We're going to be making this card, and I've got all the pieces cut and measured, and I'm just going to walk you through the measurements. So if you need to, you can pause this video, cut your pieces, and then craft along with me. So first off, we are starting with a card base. This is Crumb Cake, and it is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4 on the 8.5 inch side and just folded in half. Next, we've got a piece of early Expresso. This is 4 inches by 4 inches. A piece of basic beige, 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. This is a little strip of Designer Series paper from the Snowy Scenes Designer Series paper pack. This is 3 3/4 by 1/2 inch. And then for the inside of the card, another piece of basic beige, and this is 5 1/4 by 4. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is just stamp on our card base. So I've got Early Expresso, and I'm just going to stamp a sentiment from the More Than Autumn stamp set. Nothing's better than pumpkin spice. I'm going to stamp that right in the bottom right corner of my card front. So I'm just going to lay my card flat and just stamp right in the bottom corner. And then while I have my Early Expresso out, I'm going to take this piece of basic beige. This is 5 1/4 by 4. And on the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp Except Maybe You. And I'll stamp that in Early Expresso as well. I'm just going to put that in the middle of this inside layer. Okay, so I'm done with the Early Expresso. I'm going to close that up so it doesn't get in my way. And now what I'm going to do is stamp some random images on this little piece of basic beige, and again this was 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So what I'm going to do is stamp some of the coffee cups just in a random pattern on this piece of paper. All right, I'm done with the coffee cup. I'll get that out of the way. And then on the little sleeves of the coffee cup, I'm going to stamp in little pumpkins. And I'm also going to put one pumpkin in the bottom right corner of the inside layer. Get that out of the way. And then last, I'm going to just stamp some random little hearts just to fill up some of that extra space. All right, that's it for stamping. I'll get that out of the way. And I'm just going to wipe up some of that ink so I don't smear it on my card. All right, so to color in these coffee cups, I have got Poppy Parade for the hearts, light Crumb Cake for the cup, the light Peach Pie for the coffee sleeve, and I've got my dark pumpkin pie to fill in the pumpkins. I'll start with that. So my pumpkin is a smaller image. I'm just going to use the bullet tip, and I'm just going to fill in these pumpkins. All right, just a couple more to go on the front layer, and then I'll just color in the pumpkin on my inside layer as well while I have my pumpkin pie Stampin' Blend out. So I'm just being a little cautious to stay in the lines. I don't want to over ink my pumpkins, otherwise the color will bleed. And these are pretty small images, so I'm only using one shade of the Stampin' Blends. If they were bigger, I would use both light and dark and do a little bit of shading, but these are pretty small, so I think they're fine just with one solid color. Okay, now I'm going to grab my light peach pie and I'm going to use the brush tip. And now I'm just going to fill in around the pumpkin and the sleeves of the coffee cup. All right, one down, 3 more to go. It's a little bit quicker when you use the brush tip, but it's also easier to be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say sloppy, but for me, I still need to be cautious. If I get too quick with my brush tip, then I'm likely going to end up coloring outside of the line, but I want to keep everything inside the black line. All right, 1 more to go. Now I'm not too worried if I get my peach pie on my little pumpkins because that won't make a big difference. All right, now get that out of the way. I'm going to grab my light crumb cake and I'm just going to quickly go over the coffee cups just to give them a little bit of a darker color so that they stand out on this basic beige layer. And if you don't have these same colors in your Stampin' Blends, just experiment and see what looks good. All right, 2 more to go. I think the most time-consuming piece for card number 1 is just coloring everything in with your Stampin' Blends. All right, last coffee cup. So if I do some smooth, even strokes, I can cover quite a bit of area in one stroke, which speeds up the process just a little bit. All right. Now, the last thing I want to do, and this is optional, but I'm going to color in the hearts. Just going to use my blending brush very carefully, simply because it's a little bit quicker. But when I use this brush, as you might be able to see it, but I'm a little more prone to go over the lines. So if I'm doing a small image, I typically will use the bullet tip just to avoid bleeding over the line. Okay, so once we have all the coloring done, all we need to do is glue this card together so it comes together really quickly, like I said, once all the coloring is out of the way. Okay. So this basic beige piece that we just colored in, we're going to mat that onto our 4x4 piece of early Expresso. And I'm just going to use Tombow glue. and mat that down like so. And once I have it right where I want it, then I'm just going to give it a little bit more pressure so that glue sticks. I'm going to take my little strip of designer series paper and I'm going to put that just almost in the middle. I want maybe right about there. I'm covering up one of my hearts, but I also don't want to cover up my coffee mug, so I'm going to put it almost right in the middle. Now this piece of designer series paper is going to be flush with the basic beige layer. And once you have that on, you can grab some linen thread, and we're just going to wrap this around a couple times. Just want to make sure that I've got a bit of a tail so I can tie a bow. So wrap it around a couple times, and if it's easier for you, you can secure the back of the linen thread with your tear and tape before you tie the bow, if you need a little bit of help keeping everything in place. So I apologize if you can hear some door slamming. My family is downstairs and it's pretty loud up in my craft room when people are coming and going from the house. So that's what you're hearing, just the hustle and bustle of my family as they go about their evening. All right, so I'm just going to tie a bow. I don't want it right in the middle, but you do you. So I'm just going to tie mine just off to the right, like so. And then what I will do is I'll grab a little bit of tear and tape, and I'm just going to adhere that to the back of this layer, just to hold down my twine so it doesn't slide around. And then I'm going to grab the tails of my linen thread while at the same time I'm putting pressure and pushing down on the knot, and I'm just pulling these tails so they're going to face the direction that I want them to. And I also want to create slightly smaller loops, so while I'm holding the knot down, I'm also gently pulling on those ends of the linen thread, just till I have the bow exactly how I want it. That looks pretty good, and I'm just going to snip the edges off there. Okay, so this piece we're going to pop up to the front of the card with some dimensionals. So I'm just going to add dimensionals to each corner. And then I'm going to put just a couple in the middle as well. All right, once I have all these backings off, we're just going to put this right on the card front, above the sentiment we stamped, and just about half an inch down from the top of that card, like so. All right, now for the inside, this is simply just going to be glued into the inside of the card. And the last thing I want to do is add some faux glass dots to the bottom left corner. So I'm just going to grab one of these big ones with my scissors and a couple of the smaller ones, and I'm just going to throw these in the corner here. All right, so that's it. Card project number 1, pretty simple, but super adorable. I hope you like project 1 and tune in for project number 2.